Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Vimbai. Good morning to all our viewers out there. We begin in Asia. Lots of news coming out from Asia, particularly in the property sector. We have yet another property developer in China, particularly, that is facing a winding up petition. So in this particular case, we're looking at Guangzhou R&F Properties. They're listed in Hong Kong. So there was a petition that was brought forward by Sea-Town Private Credit Master Fund. They're saying that in terms of principal and interest, Guangzhou RF Properties is owing them about $614 million. They are not the first property developer in China that will be facing up a winding petition. Others have been brought forward. The issue is that while these companies are listed in Hong Kong, China is yet to recognize these petitions. So these things are still up in the courts. We move on to Microsoft. Microsoft apparently has requested or ordered its China employees to stop using Android phones. They want them to migrate over to Apple phones. So if you're an employee right now and you have an Android phone, they say they'll give them an iPhone 15, which is pretty nice, I must say. So they're going to drop Android as of September. Identity verification is a particular an issue. If you have an iPhone, at least from the 14, 15 and up, the front-facing camera acts as a facial recognition to unlock your phone where you don't have to put a password in. So Microsoft has, of course, its Authenticator app and its identity features, but they are not they're not available in China because Google Play is not available in China. As you know, China has certain restrictions on who can operate there. So iOS is available there, and as a result of that, Microsoft is saying, okay, all employees migrate over to the iOS platform so that we can essentially do proper identification. They faced a lot of hacks recently, so this is a cybersecurity issue that Microsoft is going for. If you look at the quote, an emailed statement that was provided from Microsoft, that essentially bolsters the point. The quote from Microsoft says, due to the lack of availability of Google mobile services in this region, being China, we look to offer employees a means of accessing these required apps, such as an iOS device. And of course, you do know that there have been issues with China ordering other workers, civil servants, not to use Apple and so on and so forth, and sales and so on. But Microsoft is doing it because of cybersecurity. We move from there, still in China, but to BYD, who is just rapidly expanding its footprint across the globe. They just announced with the Turkish government in a signing ceremony that was attended by President Erdogan a $1 billion electric vehicle factory in Turkey. So it's going to kick off towards the end of 2026. They're going to be producing about 150,000 cars a year. Initial estimates are that this is going to create about 5,000 jobs, and they want to, of course, Turkey has, of course, a customs agreement with the EU, and so they want to use this to improve EU access. Don't forget that the EU has slapped an additional 10% tariff on Chinese cars on top of an additional, on top of an additional existing 17% tariff for BYD in particular. So that issue is, of course, still there. But sales of EVs, if you look at what sales of EVs in Turkey last year, came out to about 7.5% of all sales. So it's a market that BYD is looking at. Turkey also announced a tariff, 40% on Chinese cars, but they reversed it on, I think it was Friday last week or Thursday, after Erdogan and President Xi Jinping spoke. So they removed that tariff because they want to encourage investment to come into Turkey, and that's why you're now seeing this. BYD, let's look at their expansion footprint across the world. They have major plans. BYD just opened a new plant in Thailand, in Southeast Asia. They've taken over a Ford plant in Brasilia. They're also seeking locations in Mexico. And as far as Europe is concerned, they've already started construction in Hungary. So you can see where all this is going in terms of, China, boosting its market share in electric vehicles. BYD front and center of this. They make really affordable cars, which is something that American car makers like Tesla and others are trying to compete when it comes to electric vehicles. And look, the race, the competition is just going to get hotter going from there. Let's go to Africa. Moody's has downgraded Kenya. You pretty much saw this coming, didn't you? Everybody saw this coming. This is basically withdrawal of the finance finance bill. President Ruto alluded to this. We know what happened with the protests, with the deaths and everything that's come from that. Now Kenya has to find the money somewhere. So basically, this affects Kenya's local and foreign currency issuer ratings. This is a downgrade from this is a downgrade to CAA1 to B3. CAA1 basically it's highly speculative. It means that the entity that's being reviewed is subject to high credit risk, and the risk is basically double-fold. The outlook on Kenya is negative. They're saying interest payments from fiscal year 2024 will climb to 33% from 30%, and they're also saying that Kenya is going to face a lot of liquidity issues as a result of them not being able to raise money. So the outlook on Kenya is pretty grim. Moody's has gone first. We'll have to wait and see other credit agencies follow. To the issue of food in Nigeria, you talked about that extensively, but is security really the main top issue? On the Arise exchange, which you can watch 7 p.m. weekdays, hosted by the legend himself, Bosun Omofaya, I sat in for him on one particular segment, and we spoke with Adifeko. He's the Director of Corporate and Regulatory Affairs at Olam, which is a player in the agri sector. Here's what he said, particularly about improving Nigeria's food supply.
And for us, I'm one of those who believe that you can only be competitive where you have comparative advantage. Nigeria has comparative advantage in a lot of staples, particularly. But how well we harness that has always been the challenge. So that is what I think we need to work on assiduously. And what usually happens, what the problem is right now is farmers are facing what I will call a few challenges here. So we have problems of cultivable hectares, okay, which is born out of the fact that we do not have enough inputs. Government needs to come up with fertilizer, inputs, and take care of infrastructure, okay, very, very important. And, people talk about security. Yes, security is an issue, but security is not the only issue. Security is a problem, but I don't think security is as bad as it was probably 4, 5, 6 years, prior. But there must be a concerted effort on the part of government. You see, there are 3 things that must be done. Government must be strategic, government must be intentional, and government must be deliberate.
All right, strategic, intentional, deliberate. Finally, being strategic, intentional, deliberate on fuel. You've already touched on this. Thank you, Vimbai, for bringing up that Reuters reports on what is being owed to fuel markets. The video you're showing is what I filmed yesterday on Awolowo Road, the station AMP that was closed down and wasn't actually selling. Now, back in April, Reuters said it was $3 billion that the NNPCL was owing to traders. We checked with NNPCL, they refuted it. Now, Reuters has come out again and says that bill is now $6 billion that is being owed. And again, this is, according to Reuters, because of the price differential where we're selling fuel, basically, essentially, the subsidy. 900 naira per litre fuel. Look, Arise News was in Enugu when we were with Governor Mba for his 1 year in office, where he was talking about things. Fuel in Enugu is 800 naira. In Akwa Ibom, it's over 700. The issue here, and Dr. Abati mentioned the fact that the prices are not going to increase. The prices have to increase. I'm out of breath saying this. Diesel is deregulated. It's selling for $1,004. It's almost at $1, right? And your average price is $1. PMS should be selling for $1,005 or more. Fuel markets have been saying this for months. Until you have become realistic about the price differential in fuel and what it is costing the fiscal structure of this government, these things are not going to end. But NNPC is saying it's weather issues. So that's all our update is for today.
Rotus, I don't know what you're saying. No. You see, there's an idealistic standpoint and there's a reality standpoint. I don't subscribe to that. The government is still paying subsidies. The plan is supposed to be they should get their refineries working. So I think part of the question we should ask them now is the Port Harcourt refinery, where is it? At least if you are getting local production in your cost of bringing in, then you can be able to harmonize. I'm not saying it's going to marginally reduce what you are buying on the international front, but it's also part of the lies of the NNPC. So at a time where the pajawiri of subsidy removal alone has plunged your economy into this dire strait, you are saying 1,500, don't let Nigerians stone you, they will stone you. Secondly, the reality of what you said...
Okay, let's remain where we are now.
Hang on a minute. The reality of what you said is part of the insincerity of NNPC. When Reuters released that story, they will always refute, as usual. Today they are giving us some bull story about mothership and daughtership and uncleship. Pretty much reminds me of Baby Shark, Baby Shark stories. Mommy Shark, Mommy Shark, Mommy Shark. But the reality on ground is these guys are still paying heavy subsidies. And one of the reasons why they will continue to import Rotus is the fact that a lot of people are gaining from this importation system. If they really want to stop it, they should support local refineries like Dangote, get him crude. Their own refineries should be working within. Rotus, you were talking about BYD. I want to give you a trivia question. Have you ever asked yourself, how much does Chinese government give this BYD every year? $1 billion. So companies don't just do well, their government support them. How much is Nigerian government giving the likes of Innoson and Nord and other local producers, even in orders? Don't we still have a lot of foreign Japanese cars being bought in this country? So we are talking about BYD every morning, how they are growing. It's government money, state capitalism. What we are begging for, we're not saying, I will be delusional as saying Nigerian government should give Innoson and Nord and the likes 1 billion because we don't have the money. But at least can we make a law that no government new parastatal must drive any car apart from those local producers? And the others must be shared amongst them. At least the money should go to them for productivity.
All right, to Kenya, where Kenya has been, downgraded to what we could call junk status. I think Kenya is now in the same field as Burkina Faso, Argentina, Bolivia, Mozambique, Suriname, economically speaking, not great company to be in. However, the irony around this is that the response from young Kenyans, the Gen Zs who've been driving the conversation over the past few weeks, is that they're celebrating. Why are they celebrating? They're saying, good, international community, stop giving our leaders money that they're abusing. Leaders, figure it out. Look for another way to rebuild our country, to keep our country going. Stop borrowing money and abusing it and not being accountable for it and then trying to impose and pass on the burden to us. So it's an interesting response. However, again, I've said this before, I don't envy William Ruto. I don't envy whoever his successor will be, because this kind of crisis is usually something that takes, at least a decade to be able to stabilize and normalize. So it'll be interesting to see what William Ruto decides to do. I think at the moment his only option is really to cozy up with China and Russia, which is tricky because, of course, Kenya has been made a non-member ally of NATO. So he's very close with the Americans and the West. However, it looks like the pressure will be on him to possibly change that foreign policy stance and start rubbing shoulders with the East, who are always ready to dish out more money.
Okay, let's talk about BYD setting up a factory in the Masmara region of Turkey within the context of international trade. You recall that a few weeks ago, the European Union decided to impose a provisional tariff of 37.4% on Chinese EV companies. And the complaint was that China was over-subsidizing, those EV companies, the BYD being the largest manufacturer of EVs in the world, and that Europe was gradually becoming a dumping ground for Chinese manufactured electoral vehicles. So I guess that BYD is in this regard responding to that decision by the European Union to impose the tariff. And the European Union is even saying it could go higher because, after all, in May, the US imposed a tariff of 100% on EV imports from China. The US also has what they call the Inflation Reduction Act, which is supposed to discourage importations from China specifically. However, this raises questions about international trade, which was the point that Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, the Director General of the WTO, was making in an interview with the BBC yesterday. And her point was that, look, it looks like the world is going back to the protectionism of the 1930s. And I shows that that is not the case, because free trade, is something that is desirable for the benefit of the whole of the world. Otherwise, people will suffer and we will find ourselves, because of these trade wars, in the same situation in which we found ourselves in the 1930s. Students of international trade will understand the difference between protectionism and free laissez-faire and all of those theories. This is not the moment for theory on international trade law. Now, the other issue that I wanted to draw your attention to is that Shani Redstone, the non-executive chairman of Paramount, the biggest, movie-making company in the U.S., producers of The Godfather, producers of a number of other and owners of Nickelodeon, the CBS and all that. They've decided to sell. And they are selling to a company, Skydance, which is a media company, that's going to put $28 billion on the table. Well, some people say this will be an overwhelming, case of merger and acquisition and all that. But there's still a window for people like Rotus, in case you also want to buy, because there's a clause there that if they get a better bid, the Redstone family may sell to another bidder. They only have to pay, $400 million, breakup fee. So I know you are very, much into all this video.
Doctor, why are you having me like this now?
Who says you cannot buy the Paramount motion picture studios?
Somebody says you're into crypto. Is it crypto you do now? Is it crypto you do now, Rotus?
I don't do crypto. I don't do crypto.
One of your critics in the gallery is the one saying that. But Jerome Powell will be, at the Congress today to talk about inflation. And by Thursday, we will have figures on inflation from the United States so that we'll have an idea. Even if Robert Kaplan, former Fed president, is saying that there will be a rate cut in September. But we'll see how that works out. But Jerome Powell is always talking about data, and that the data will determine the future direction of the figures in the United States. Thank you very much indeed.
All right, thank you so much, Rotus. Stay safe out there, especially after, advocating for 1,500 Naira fuel. I want to come for you.